Vu.
Here.
Senator Armstrong.
Here.
Senator Camley.
Here.
Senator Carrillo.
Here.
Senator Trevanian.
Here.
Senator Durham.
Here.
Senator Guzman.
Here.
Senator Hassan.
Here.
Senator Hernandez.
Here.
Senator Hill.
Here.
Senator Martinez. Senator Marcos.
Here.
Senator Ornelas.
Here.
Senator Pierce.
Here.
Senator Renteria. Senator Rivera.
Here.
Senator Seavey.
Here.
Senator Singh.
Here.
Senator Vang.
Here.
Thank you, Senate Recorder. There are 16 senators present and 4 executives present. Quorum is met. We'll now proceed to item 3.0, public comment. Public comment is a time for any member of the public to address the Senate on any issues affecting Associate Students, Inc. and or California State University, Fresno. You can either address your concern live during the meeting at the allotted time, or you can send your comment ahead of time via email to asi-vice-president@mail.fresnostate.edu. We will now open the floor to public comment. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. If there is any public comment, please approach the podium.
Chair and members of the Senate, my name is Cody Jarvis, and I am a junior political science transfer student and a member of the External Affairs Committee here at Fresno State. While I'm in my capacity for the things I do here at this college, I feel it's also necessary to state that in my time in the community college student system, I've served in many student leader roles, including legislative representative, student trustee, currently as the vice president of regional affairs for the Student Senate for California Community Colleges. I've done multiple legislative visits, and in each one of my roles, I've either written or advocated for policies. Today, I'm here to urge this body to vote no on the proposal to make the Vice President of External Affairs an appointed delegate position.
Let's see. Is this on? Can you hear me? Okay. I have to scoot this closer. Well, it's good to be with you all today. My name is Matt Hawkins. I have been here for just over 3 months now. I've worked in higher ed for about 21 years, and I just moved here from Indiana, so I'm still learning the system with you all. If it's okay with you all, if you have questions throughout the presentation, if you would just raise your hand and ask, we can kind of talk through any of those things in that moment, so we don't have to go back through them. This is just kind of a really high-level overview of the university's finances, some student level data, some labor market data, and then some financial information. So just starting on, are you all looking at that screen or your own screens? Do you have the presentation in front of you? Okay, cool. So the first thing I looked at when I came to Fresno State was just some of the student level data. This is just one slide that shows the student body here at Fresno State. One of the things that I found most interesting was just that 54% are 18 to 21 year old. I thought that number would be just a little bit higher than it is. And Pell Grant eligible at 59%, that was a little lower than I thought it would be. But it just kind of paints a picture of the student body here. This is Fresno State enrollment from 2019 through, this is Fresno State enrollment from 2019 through 2025. I just wanted to look at this to see kind of the effects of COVID that affected every institution very differently. And at Fresno State, this is actually pretty level throughout the period. A lot of schools had a lot of fluctuation through the period. These are degrees awarded by college. It's another one just trying to look at trends within the colleges. Were there any upticks or any decrease in degrees being awarded at the college level in each college? And this is also pretty stable. Degrees awarded by level. You can see, obviously, no surprise, bachelor's degrees are the highest percent of degrees, but also through that same period, very, very consistent number of awards. This slide, to me, is really important. It shows essentially a snapshot of a freshman class. And if you look at that snapshot over a 4-year period, so if you were completing on time within 4 years, 42 out of 100 students would no longer be with the institution. 30% would still be enrolled, and then that 28% are graduating on time within 4 years. If you look at the bottom of the chart on the left, the predominant portion of students are taking between 12 and 14 credit hours. So I'm not sure what you all are taking. I know some of you are taking a lot more credit hours than that, but that's an opportunity for us within that population that's taking 12 to 14, because 15 credit hours is the same price as 12. 18 credit hours is the same price as 15, so the more credit hours a student can take within a semester, the more cost effective it is. This is net revenue per student. This is just looking at university aid. Some institutions will start increasing aid to keep enrollment level or without fluctuating. So you just have to keep an eye on that to see how much you're investing per student with university aid, to see how much revenue is coming into the institution. So we'll get into Fresno State finances a little. So this is one, it's just showing how the money flows into Fresno State. And essentially the legislature will make an appropriation that will go to the chancellor's office, and then the chancellor's office takes that and distributes it to the 23 or now 22 campuses. So you can see that's based on an operating appropriation and then tuition and fees that come in at each institution. Then from there, when it comes in from the chancellor's office, you can see a few of those little boxes where it goes next. So you've got designated expenses that are things like benefits and utilities that you have to pay for up front. Then there is the president's discretionary fund, which is 0.2% of that. Then the big portion is level A. So level A then goes to the divisions, whether that be academic affairs, which I know you'll have a presentation on after this, or administration, student affairs. All of those areas get a level A allocation that is essentially to that vice president's level, and then that vice president allocates within their division. So in academic affairs, that would go to each of the colleges. Yes.
I don't know if this is like a chancellor's office question. Well, it is, but I was wondering if you knew, like, how does the chancellor's office decide how much to give to each campus? Like, are there any factors they take into consideration a lot more?
So they're taking enrollment into account heavily, but then they do have things within where they're looking at kind of grants within that allocation. So if you have a higher Pell number of students at your campus, your allocation could be increased based on that. The other thing is they pay for enrollment, but some institutions have had a really significant decreased enrollment, and they've held their appropriation flat, or they've held their allocation flat. So that means if you're at a campus where you have increased enrollment, you may not get as much for that increased enrollment as you thought, because a portion might be going to a Pell institution or holding another campus flat. So it's not really just kind of a one-for-one tuition in. They're making adjustments on there. Any other questions on this slide? Yes?
Actually, yes. I have a question, since you explained that this is a level A and the vice president decides where that money will go for. In one of our meetings, we had the Essential Needs Center present to us, and they mentioned that they were supposed to receive $600,000 and only received $40,000 out of that. So my question is, where is the remaining $560,000, or where is that money being funded, or where is it at?
So I'll be a little careful with this one, because the Chancellor's Office is working with campuses right now on this question. There's a question whether that was essentially a line item to campuses for that, or whether it was going into the budget as a whole. And student affairs budget, along with all the other budgets, was cut. But there's more money going into that from the student fee and from other areas. You may actually be, are you touching on this at all? Okay. So if I come back to your next meeting, I'll have a better answer for you as far as if it was a line item or if it went into the overall budget. But if we look at all of the funds that are being directed towards that need, It's actually not decreased. But that specific line and that specific comment was about that one line, not the overall funding going towards students. So this is the operating budget for this year. And what this shows really is that there is more expense in this year that we're currently in than there is revenue. So the institution is using reserves, which are one-time dollars, to balance the budget this year. So that is obviously concerning. That's not something that is sustainable over a many-year period. You want your revenue to equal your expenses. As you all know, because you're very good with money based on your balance sheet. So this is, and I would buy someone a coffee if you know why the top of this is pink. You can't answer, President. Got pink on, it's Wednesday. Come on. No, when I got this chart back, it was green at the top, and I was like, green is not, it's bad that we're using these dollars, so it can't be green. And the presentation was Wednesday, and I was like, well, just make it pink because it's Wednesday. And the person I was working with was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, I knew some of you would get it. The IRA fee, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this, President. This is the breakout of the fee. I know there are a lot of opinions on this fee. This just shows where those dollars are being allocated. Obviously, the biggest portion of the fee is going towards athletics. That's the blue on the left, which is about 5 million of the 11, and then the other funds are going into all of those different areas that you see there. So moving forward. So we have to make a plan to move forward where we're not using any reserve funds to balance the budget. So we wanted to you kind of look back to create a picture of what's happened. So if you look at this slide, it's saying what is the general fund balance? And that's basically saying if you add all of the dollars up at Fresno State, how many days could you operate with no new revenue? So the black line at the top, that's 180 days. That's kind of the gold standard in higher education. You want to have about a half a year of operating expenses. That puts you in a very safe zone for operating and to cover all of your liabilities. You can see at Fresno, there's only 2 years where it was above 90 days, which is where you get into the green territory. But if you look closer from the first bar in 2015-16 down to 19-20, there was a trend of dollars being used in excess of the revenue that was coming in. So reserves were being used during those years. That was pre-COVID. And if you see the uptick in the fund balance to where it's green in 22-23, that is largely because of federal relief dollars that came to the institution. After COVID was over, you can see the trend of spending more than the revenue that was coming in started again. So just painting a picture of the past, essentially 10 years. And some will ask, how would you overspend a budget? And this is just kind of a simple example of how you could do that based on the structure within PeopleSoft. So if you have projected expenses of $100 and projected revenue of $100, that would be a balanced budget. PeopleSoft was also putting in your carry forward amount. So you could spend into your carry forward amount with your budget and go into the next year having overspent the budget, even though it would look like the budget was balanced because it wasn't red because of the carry forward. So moving forward, we're trying to localize the carry forward into reserves so you can't access that so easily. So divisions know what they're working with, and if they do want to spend into reserves, there has to be a conversation with someone about why and what you're spending that on. So if you're spending it on salaries, if you use one-time dollars to cover salaries, which are recurring, that won't work for very long. So localizing the reserves and not calling it carry forward is one thing that we're looking at doing to help correct the budget. This is an operating margin slide. And basically, in the very basic form, it's looking at revenue and expense. So if your revenues equal your expense, you've got a 0% operating margin. It's equal. So you can look at Fresno State, the black line is 0. So 6 of the past 10 years, Fresno State has had a negative operating margin, which points back to that carry forward. If you're using carry forward, you can spend more than the revenue that's coming in, and you can do it in repeated years. One of the reasons I don't think this has been looked at a lot is because it's used by rating agencies. So you've probably heard of S&P and Fitch and Moody's, and they assign bond ratings to institutions. In the CSU, it's the chancellor's office that negotiates the rate. So all of the campus finances in the whole state are rolled up into one, and then they negotiate the rate. So this is not something that a lot of campuses have looked at, but they're going to start looking at. When we had our financial sustainability meeting with the chancellor's office, we showed them this slide, and it's one thing they picked up on that they want to use at the other campuses as well, just so you can see kind of a very global picture of what's happening. NACUBO is the National Association of College and University Business Officers. Their absolute bottom that you should never go below is 2%. So if you go below a 2% operating margin, the rating agencies would put you on what they call a watch. So they're going to watch you very closely, and then they can downgrade your bond rating. If they downgrade you, then you have to pay more for debt. Basically, your rating is communicating to the market, this is the risk involved in buying our debt. And if it goes below 2%, that's where they start decreasing the bond rating. Questions on this slide? President, do you have? Okay. So this slide is just showing the campus as an enterprise. We talk about a lot about the university budget, but you've also got, as you know, the athletics budget, and you've got the auxiliaries, which handle housing and dining and other functions. So all of that is really playing into each other. So if you do one thing on the university budget, it could affect athletics or the auxiliaries. The same if you do anything with auxiliaries, it can affect the university budget. So you may have heard about SaveMart. The university owns SaveMart, but the association pays the debt on SaveMart. And that will be paid off in 2031. But that's just one of the ways that they interact with each other. These are some of the things we're doing, working towards a structurally balanced budget. The number of MPPs, which is kind of a management level position at Fresno State, is down almost 10% from February. So many of those roles have been reduced. You may have noticed some of the trailers on campuses, those kind of mobile classroom units, we have 7 of those that we've rented for a very long time, so we're getting rid of 4 of those. When I first got here, I came here on a Saturday and put pennies in the tires of all of the cars to just see in 6 weeks if the pennies were still there. We may not be using that car as much as we should. So we've started selling cars. I think we've sold 12 of them so far. So we're really looking at absolutely anything that doesn't affect students directly. So if it's positions in areas like administration, like my area, you all may not feel that if there's a cut in that area. You probably won't feel it if we sell a certain number of cars. So I always want to look at there first before it affects students in any way. We talked about the carry forward balance, and then we have to, by July 1 of next year, have a 0% operating margin, meaning a balanced budget that we pass. This is the carry forward or reserves compared to the operating budget. So you can see you really want that black line to be kind of in the middle of the blue. So it's obviously much lower than that. This is university debt. You can see it's declining. We haven't added any new debt. I think actually this building is probably the last debt that we added. So we owe $47 million on this building still, and it'll be paid off in 2053. So as an example, that chart, we'll keep doing that until we add more debt to it. Most times when we add debt, the chancellor's office or the state is funding the debt service. But sometimes we'll fund things on our own and have to sell our own This is looking forward. So what we're trying to do is look forward about 10 years and figure out how do you make that budget and what do you want the budget to look like. In 25, where that graph starts, we're overspending the budget. We know it's $3.2 million over budget. So in 26, we just want that budget to be at 0%. So we just want it to be balanced. In the next years, you can see the operating budget dips a little, even though there's what we're projecting to be maybe a 2% increase in the budget. And that would be a combination of state funds and tuition dollars, and tuition will probably increase every year, which is set at the Chancellor's office. The reason it dips is right now we're not investing a lot into deferred maintenance. So we have about $500 million of deferred maintenance on campus that there are buildings, they need all kinds of work. The standard is to put 2% of your replacement value of buildings into deferred maintenance every year. That's why that dips, because that number for us is about $22 million. We have on the state side, the university side, we have about $1.1 billion in buildings. So that number is large the first year, but then if you plan out, if you base one budget on it and it's in the next budget, it becomes easier year after year. And this is what that would look like over that 10-year period. Now this will totally bump into reality, and I get that, and things will change, but the general plan would be just what we talked about. So you want to build reserves over a time period. So it would be a 0% next year. The next year after that, it would be 1%. The next year after that, it would be 2%. A 1% operating margin is about $4 million going into reserves. A 2% is about $8 million. So you see over that period, if you did exactly that for 10 years, you still only get to about $140 million, which is still not close to the 180 days, but it's definitely a good start. The orange is the deferred maintenance. So the plan would be, if you budget for it at $22 million a year, you spend that money on the buildings during that year, so that account would not increase over the years. The TRP is what's called the total return portfolio. That's something at the Chancellor's office. They invest money. Based on the investments, they send that money back to the campuses, and that for us is about $2 million a year. So right now, that's our only deferred maintenance funding that's coming into the institution. When we had our accreditation visit, one thing that they want is a 5-year budget projection. One of the things we need to do that projection is a campus master plan. And basically what that does is a building assessment of every building at the institution, and then it essentially outlines in what order you should do work. So if a building needs a new roof or things like that, it shows up in the plan, and you can plan in that year what deferred maintenance to fund. So that's one of the first steps we need to get through, which we're starting right now. And this is starting to look forward. So we're always trying to look at economic indicators just to see what is going on in the economy, and if certain things happen, how does that affect Fresno State? So this is just looking back to say, there are a lot of references. They'll say the Great Recession, this happened. And this is what happened with enrollment in the Great Recession. In 2008, that was the recession. It ended fairly quickly, but, and I know you all are so young, you may not remember some of this. They extended unemployment benefits for a very long time. So as people were unemployed, they weren't going back to school. The feds then increased Pell by 37% over 2 years. And when unemployment ran out, you saw enrollment do what it's doing in 2011, 12, and 13. And specifically at community colleges, it really shot up in that time period. And I was trying to see if Fresno State had the same effect, and it did. So the difference, if you have a recession in the future, and we're all, just predicting, when the Great Recession happened, the feds dumped money on the states to help protect them and to stimulate the economy. The same thing happened during COVID. There were trillions of dollars pumped into the economy, and that recession didn't last very long because of it. If there's a recession now, I don't see the federal government stepping in with a lot of dollars to correct it. I don't know that My gut says they won't. So it would be a very different looking recession. So that's why we're looking at these types of things. So labor force participation, that looks relatively stable towards the end, but if you look at 1% change in that labor force participation, that's about 170,000 people. So the very tail end of that in 25, where it's going down, that is actually a fairly large number of people compared to what the graph looks like. The unemployment rate has been pretty stable. I know the highest unemployment rate in the nation now is in Washington, D.C., which isn't surprising. Then we have new jobs added by month. And this is just an economic indicator that the feds look at when they're looking at inflation and monetary policy. This is one of their key indicators. So you can see this graph doesn't look great. The next one is just jobs added by month in the thousands. So you can see that chart also looks concerning. But there are opinions all over the place about the economy, whether it will strengthen next year or whether this is a bubble that will pop. So there are opinions all over the place. These are just some of the things that we can look at and say, well, that doesn't look great. So there's a budget webpage that has a lot of materials on it that you all can go to. Are there any questions about anything? Was this interesting at all?
And then if we have any remaining questions, can we get a motion to extend time if we wish? Senator Hazan?
I motion to extend the time for questions by 10 minutes.
Senator Hernandez?
I second that.
Is there a competing motion on the floor? Any discussion or debate? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? The motion to extend time for questions by 10 minutes passes. And then we'll now open the floor for any questions. Senator Sevi.
Sorry, guys. I messed it up. I'll just talk loud. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for that. I will not lie and say I understood all of it, because I didn't. But one of the things that I really do want to touch on was earlier. I know you said stop you in the middle, but I wanted to see where the rest of the presentation went. When you showed that graphic about how many students are finishing on time, and I just want to address that kind of on time, because yes, 46%,
42.
42% leaving, that's bad, but that still means that over 50% are still either graduated or on the path to graduation. So I'm wondering why there's this big focus on finishing in 4 years, considering that we don't have a lot of 18 to 21-year-olds. We have a lot of older students, people with families, non-traditional, first-generation students. Why that's still such a focus when it comes to enrollment and funding?
So I don't know if it's been a focus here. It's only me
Okay.
talking about this.
It's just in general. I've heard a lot of graduate on time.
So in Indiana, they didn't pay for enrollment at all. They paid for completions. So because enrollment is not an output. So a lot of people will go to school, they'll get debt, and they'll drop out of school. The school did not accomplish anything. They just got some funding for enrollment. So completion being the goal is, in my opinion, what the goal should be. In Indiana, you got paid twice as much if a student completed on time. So at a 2-year institution, it was 2 years. At a 4-year, it was 4 years. And when a student came in the door, you had to hand them a degree map that they could take 15 credits a semester. The classes were laid out. And if you didn't offer that in that order, it was against the law to charge them. So there's a huge focus on making sure students can take 15 credits in the correct order. So my push in talking about it, and the president's allowing me to say this, I don't think the university's really pushing this hard. It saves students so much money if they graduate in 4 years rather than even 5 years, because you have to think about the lost income and all the money they're spending here. So if our students are taking 12.4 credit hours, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them could take 15. And all I want is for someone to say, if you take 12.4, you will not graduate in 4 years. There is zero chance. So if you want to graduate in 4 years, here's how you do that. That's all I want. And that, I worked at the Commission for Higher Education, which is kind of a policy organization.
Yeah.
One of the things that increased completion overall was talking about on-time completion. And the schools hated it. They did not want to talk about on-time completion because there were so many factors that students couldn't complete on time. But even at IB Tech where I worked, where students were taking very few credit hours and working full-time and adult students, the number of them that started taking more when we adjusted the way we charged and made it easier for them. So it became a flat rate. Whereas in California, it's banded. So 12 to 18 is the same price. In Indiana, we just said, once you pay the full-time rate, you can take whatever you want. So we had students that were taking 8-week courses and taking up to 60 credits a year. And they were paying only for the full-time rate for a semester. So we were removing all of those barriers just to say, if you want to get done fast, you can totally do it here. And if you want to take more time, that's fine. But if you've got 46% of students taking almost 15, I just want to make sure someone is saying, you won't graduate in 4 years. And if you want to, here's how you do it. But if you want to be here 5 or 6 years, high five.
Okay, so that leads to a follow-up question, because we've heard a lot of talk about class availability, especially for things that are needed for graduation or to meet GE requirements or be a prerequisite for other things that are requirements. And I'm just wondering how do we fix that if we want students to complete on time and graduate, but then they can't get classes to meet those requirements. Where are we finding that middle ground?
Your next presenter.
Next presenter, okay.
I'm not going to walk down the road.
Okay.
So he might be able to, he can probably answer that a lot better
Fair.
than
Okay.
me. But I just want it to be atomic. I just want it to be on everyone's radar that if students want to do that, they can do that, they know how to do that, they know 15 is the same as 12 as far as price. And once all students are aware of all of that, whatever they choose, that's fine.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Senator Martinez.
I will make one comment on that. I believe it's, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I think when you go to register for classes, there is a warning that pops up that says you must take 15 units a semester or else you will not graduate in 4 years.
Oh, fantastic.
So that does happen to our school's credit. But I do like that you bring that up because that's a really fair point, and I love that. I never heard of Indiana's way of doing that. It's very interesting, so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, Indiana's, it's a giant cornfield, but as far as higher education policy, they are kind of ahead of their time, and they had really great senators that then went to the commission to implement some of these policies, and it's made a huge difference. Even just saying, we're not paying you unless students graduate, changes the way institutions look at how they do everything. Because if your incentive is enrollment, you're going to focus on enrollment, and that's not the goal.
Yeah. I guess I'd be curious to know if people, when that pop-up does come up, because obviously you have to like press OK to then actually register for classes. I wonder if people are like disregarding that message. Like, does anybody actually read that? You know, that'd be something we can look into.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think if I would have read that or stopped, or I'm not sure. But the more we can talk about it,
Yeah.
maybe better.
Thank you.
Any additional, Senator Hill?
Yeah, I'm a personal case of this, doing the extra semester thing, and that's at the expense of, the purpose of that was for internships, and I know as a current college student, it's really, in a STEM field, we're facing like record highs in post-grad unemployment right now, and so I think, I'm just spitballing, but there has to be an emphasis on preventing unemployment once we get out of here, because a lot of opportunities are available only for college students right now with internships, and so I know this kind of arrested development is, to some extent, a symptom of a market that is kind of unfriendly, and I know there's only so much that's within Fresno State's purview on that, but I can say there's been both good and then what can be improved in how Fresno State has been accommodating students to interact with the market and get jobs, and so importance should be placed on that program too.
And I think there's a lot of conversation now about employment post-college. Because there's a lot of, when you're a Fresno State, you're technically Carnegie classified as an R2 institution, so you're a research institution kind of, you're a teaching institution kind of. So there's, in my opinion, there's kind of less exploring to do, and more of a do this and you'll get this job, which is not the most popular opinion, but there are plenty of places to explore, for sure. But I think there's more conversation of a direct link, and it's really been a long time since we've had a prolonged recession, and when you don't have a prolonged recession, a lot of folks can get jobs without a degree, and then the value of a degree starts to be questioned. So if you have a long recession, the jobs that come back and are filled first are those that have a bachelor's degree. So every time that happens, then the value of higher education comes back to the forefront, and they're like, oh, it's valuable. But this has been if you take COVID out, it's been 15 plus years since there's been a recession, and it creates some of the talk that we hear. But I'm totally with you as far as like, take this degree. And so many parents are also like, if they take this, what is the job they're getting?
And then we'll take one final question. Senator Haslam.
You mentioned this building specifically being part of our university debt, so I apologize if this is a redundant question, but can I ask where the money is coming from to fund or pay off the debt for this building? Is it a culmination of like multiple sources? Like
It's a combination of multiple sources.
Okay.
Student fees
Okay.
is part of it, which your president brings up here and there. But then there were large donations as well.
Okay.
So those donations are given over many years. So that, I think, 60% of the massive donation to build a building is in, so that'll come in over the next few years as well. But student fees is predominantly where it comes from.
And are those student fees like every year or every
Yes.
semester? Okay.
And this, I believe, this body voted for those student fees to build this building, but when they voted, the fees didn't start until the building was built, so they were all out of school, I think, right? Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for coming to speak to us today. We appreciate all the work you do at Fresno State.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll now be moving on to discussion item 7.2, Academic Affairs Division Budget Update. Vice Provost Hassan will provide an informational overview of the Division of Academic Affairs budget. Senators will gain a clear understanding of how the division's fiscal priorities align with Fresno State's mission and strategic goals. The presentation will be followed by time for questions and discussion. The Student Senate has allocated 15 minutes for this item, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So I'm like Vice President Hawkins. If you have questions as we go through, please feel free to stop me. The question about class availability, I think it's the penultimate slide. It doesn't answer your question, that's a separate presentation, but that might be the best place to talk about that piece.
Thank you.
So I've been here a lot longer than the Vice President behind me. I've been here longer than you've all been alive. I started in chemistry as a faculty member. I was a department chair. I worked in the dean's office, and then moved into this role about 4 years ago. And no one's ever asked me to come here before, and I appreciate the invitation, and I hope that it's helpful. And hopefully some of this dovetails with some of what you heard from our CFO just now. And so this first slide is in line. This is the budget planning process from the 100,000 foot level. The process of preparing a budget proposal, and then it goes to the legislature, they consider it, and so on. A couple of things that I'd like to point out in this cycle, which takes the full year. One is that we're making class scheduling decisions in the spring, and students are starting to enroll several months before we have a state budget even. We don't have a campus budget or a division budget until August, when you guys are almost in classes. And so the planning cycle isn't well aligned with the course scheduling cycle, which can cause some challenges. And the two pieces I'd like you just to make a note of here is January is the governor's budget submitted to the legislature, and then in June the final budget. So on the next slide, this is showing the proposed budget cuts to Fresno State, backed out of the cuts to the system that were proposed in that January budget versus what actually happened in the final budget in June. And so the original proposal was almost $20 million would have been the impact to Fresno State, which would have been really, really devastating. In June, the final budget was a 3% cut to the system, which translated to about $7 million cut to the campus. And it feels strange to talk about that as a win, but compared to what could have happened, that was a really good outcome. There was a lot of advocacy that happened to get us there, and students played a big role in that, and ASI played a big role in that as well. So that was your voice being heard up in Sacramento that helped to contribute to that. I have a lot on these slides, I don't have time to cover it all, but I like to give the details so you have it in front of you, and if you have questions, just stop me, or we can talk another time as well if you need a bit more time with it. So then moving on to the campus budget. We talk a lot about the budget cuts, but that's just one piece, as you've heard from our CFO, there's a lot of moving pieces to the budget. And so this slide is trying to summarize on the left all the things that cause challenges to us. So either things going up in cost or cuts to us that we have to find money elsewhere. On the right-hand side, increase in funding that obviously helps us to close the budget gap. And so when all those pieces come together, the number I have is close to $5 million, so I think my number's out of date. Vice President Hawkins had 3.2 million, I think, in his presentation. But there's a gap. We don't have enough money to cover everything after all the dust settles on that. And so that we have to make that up in some other way, either by spending less or finding money from elsewhere. And this year, the president made the decision to find that money in funding that wasn't spent in previous years and applying that to this year. But that's a one-time thing. We won't have that in future years. So I'm here to talk specifically about academic affairs, which is just one piece of the campus. And so this is just an unofficial overview of how we're organized with the president at the top. There are 6 divisions. Academic affairs is just one of those divisions, but we are the largest. And we're the division where all of the teaching, the instruction, the formal instruction happens. So the 8 colleges and schools are housed within academic affairs. All of the academic departments and the programs, the academic programs are housed within those colleges. And then we have a whole set of support units that are listed in those boxes on the right-hand side of that shaded area. We have about 15 offices that support either faculty or students or programs, and it involves research, it involves graduate programs, it involves undergraduate programs. So we're about 2/3 of the level A allocation because the total number of staff and faculty within the division is about double the combined numbers that are in the other divisions. So you've already heard a bit about the budget allocation process. The funding, general funding, comes from the Chancellor's Office to the campus. There's a piece of that that's set aside for university commitments. That's what we colloquially call in academic affairs as level 0. But that's things like the benefits and the other pieces that a university commitment is for. And then the rest goes out through level A to the other divisions and to academic affairs. So just following the arrows down to the campus and then to academic affairs, that's the point at which we become involved in allocating out funds to support the work that we do, the mission of the university. The bulk of that goes out to the academic schools and colleges, but there's also support, of course, for the library. There are budget commitments that we have centrally, things like software licenses for academic purposes, like Canvas we pay for, and then those other offices that support everything that we do. And there are some other arrows coming in from the sides that you'll see because there are other funding sources that help to support some of those areas and some of those units. This is showing on the left-hand side, the bars are showing the budget allocation to the campus for the last 4 years. And so I've shaded out the areas that aren't directly coming to academic affairs. So the bottom part is that central part, level 0, the academic affairs piece, and then on top, the allocations to all of the other divisions in the university. And you can see that the totals go up. And so you might wonder how do you reconcile that with the cuts that we're facing. The challenge isn't just the allocation, of course, it's the costs. And so the challenge for us is that our costs are going up faster than our budget. So if you look at the bars on the graph on the right-hand side, let's start on the right, the very right, that bar that says budget increase at the bottom. This is the budget allocation change to academic affairs over the last 3 years. So you can see that in 23-24 you can't even see the color, but there was a very small increase. In 24-25 there was an increase, 25-26 there was an increase as well. But the bar next to that is showing some of our cost increases, and that's just union negotiation salary raises for those years. And so you can see that there's a gap growing between the costs and the funding that we're getting. And that is just the negotiated salary piece. We also have other costs that aren't reflected in those increases. Everything goes up every year, so our software licenses go up, our equipment goes up. There are other promotions and raises that our faculty and staff receive that aren't funded as a part of that salary negotiation. So that's the challenge for us. Not the change necessarily in the allocation, but the difference in the allocation versus the costs. So here's how, on the left-hand side, how we utilize the funds that come to academic affairs, or how we utilized them last year, I should say. So that's a percentage of the total allocation. So about half of the funds, that blue segment there, 48%, go to tenure-track faculty salaries. Another 27% go to support our lecturers who teach classes, of course. 13% goes to staff, support staff, 4% to managers, and everything else fits in that remaining 8%. So we're almost entirely salaries in academic affairs. On the right-hand side, you can see some of the changes that have happened over the last year that have been made to try and address some of the budget challenges. So we had 26 faculty retire or leave the university last year. The provost decided to replace only 11 of those, so we had a decrease in tenure-track faculties. That impacts the classroom, it saves money, so it's a trade-off between those two. For our support staff, we had 12 staff that retired or left that they weren't replaced. We had more leave that were replaced, so the net change was 12. And then the third piece, the biggest, or a big piece of the cost is the classes that we offer. And so more classes means more salaries, means more costs. And we have to balance that against class size. And so I'm sure you've noticed a change in class size in the last couple of years you've been around. And that's part of the reason why that's the case. So this is a slide where I do not want to make eye contact. Is there a question?
Yeah. Sorry, I thought the eye contact was for me. I was like, oh no. Yeah, just kind of going back up and going with CFO Hawkins' presentation about there's like an increased enrollment demand, and I know that our students take 12.4, 12.6, but the survey that just went out about like when they want classes, and I know that I met with Dr. Still today, and he had said that we would need to increase like course sections over 100 to be able to even offer every student 15 units. So there's the problem of our students not taking 15. If some assume that to be a problem, and then there's the problem of we don't even have the capabilities and the accessibility to offer that to students if they even want it. So my question is there any steps that are going to be taken towards that? I know it costs money, but it's also like, what's a university without courses for students?
Right, and that's a bigger conversation. So certainly our provost, who's my boss, has made the commitment for the spring. If we have a demand for classes, we're going to offer them, and then we'll figure out. Now I really don't want to make eye contact. We'll figure out how we're going to cover that, because you're right, that's why we're here. There are a lot of issues around this. It's not just the number of classes, it's when they're offered as well, right? So we have issues with, sometimes we have majors that have to take 2 classes. The goal is to take them in one semester, but they conflict in time. Or there aren't enough sections to meet the demand. Someone has a job or an internship or something that conflicts with the time and there's no alternative. So these are all things that we're talking about. There's a budgetary piece to that, and that's the focus today, but there's also a lot of discussion about what do we need to do to make sure that our students have the units they need. And Vice President Hawkins is right, that the 4-year graduation goal, it's one of those common metrics that's used to kind of assess how campuses are doing in graduating their students. But there is a big financial piece to that as well, in lost earnings and additional fees if someone doesn't graduate in that time. And so that's why we look at that. But we also recognize we have an unusual student body very diverse, very non-traditional, and the 4 years doesn't work for everybody.
So why don't we offer more things like online classes and pushing online when available to help those people who might have conflicts or, need asynchronous, or maybe they just can't get to school because, I don't know, they can't afford gas to drive up from Hanford.
Yeah, and we're certainly encouraging more online. The modality decision, well, there's several pieces to that. The first piece has to be that the academic program has to say that it's okay for that course to be online, that they feel like the learning outcomes can be met with an online course. And if that's the case, we have to find instructors who are willing to teach in that modality. That's an area that we've talked about a lot. It's an area that we're trying to grow because of some of the reasons that you mentioned just now. And I think we'll see that moving forward. We're also looking at more fully online degrees as well. We've had cases of staff on our campus who've taken a graduate degree at another institution because they can't take classes in person on campus, but they can do them online. So that's another important piece of it.
Thank you.
So this is one of the slides where I don't want to make eye contact with my colleague behind me because it's doing exactly what he doesn't want us to do. So there's 3 bars here. Let's start with the middle bar. So this is the increase, at least the filled parts of the bar, are the increase in revenue or reduction in costs this year compared to last year. So the staff that weren't replaced and the tenure track faculty that weren't replaced collectively save us about $2 million. There's a cost to that in terms of what we can do, but the financial savings is about $2 million. We're hoping that the president will agree to help us with some of the summer revenue from last summer to help us offer more course sections. But collectively with all of that, you compare that to the bars on the right-hand side, and here's where the issue is, that bottom right bar, the reduction from 23-24 carry forward. So last year, our division budget was cut by $6.2 million, and we intentionally moved $2 million in unspent funds from the prior year to cover $2 million of that $6 million last year. So we only had to find $4 million to reduce. So that helped us that year, but of course that's a one-time allocation, that money's not there anymore. And then the following year, which is this year, we have to find that before we can address some of the other issues. The bars on the left-hand side, these are one-time funds that we have available to us right now. There's about $3 million there. So when you put all of that together, there's a funding gap. This year, I can't figure it out from where I am at the back here. I think it's $500,000 to $1 million. And the goal is to use some of those one-time funds to cover that gap. But in the following year, when the one-time money isn't available for the cut for this year, our costs are going to go up, and the gap is going to be larger, and we have to figure that out before we can do anything else. I just have two real slides left. This one is showing the budget allocations within the division last year versus this year, and then on the right-hand side, the budget allocation. So you can see that this year, the allocation from us out to the colleges and to the units is higher than it was last year. That's because salaries have gone up. And that middle bar is slightly higher than the bar on the right-hand side, which is our allocation. And so the difference between these two is the gap that we have to close. And then my last slide with colors on it. Trying to put all of that together. So that there are four bars on here. The top left, that's showing the net change in our funding relative to fiscal year 22-23. So 23-24, when you balance out the increase in allocation, the increase in costs, we're about $4 million worse off. And then last year, we're over $10 million worse off compared to 22-23. And then this year, if you don't count the one-time allocation, then it's closer to it's over $12 million there. And then on the other side of the ledger, we have increases in enrollment, right? So the top right is showing that change from 22-23 all the way through to this year. There's an asterisk there because obviously we don't know spring enrollment yet. That's a projection, but we're expecting an increase this year over last year. And so something has to give, and what's been giving has been the class size. So the bottom left is showing the average class size over the last 15 or so years. And you can see that in 21, 22 through 23, 24, the average class size was quite low. Again, that was an investment that the division made to try and help with classes. But you can see that that started to increase again now because we don't have the funds to pay the instructors to offer more sections. Do you have a question?
Yeah, you talked about there was the 6 million cuts and then the 2 million carryover that we don't have, and then that you guys are discussing what the cut. I just want to know, has there been any predictions of what's going to be cut? And then I know that in an executive academic senate meeting, and I don't know if this is from the university budget specifically, that the president had stated that academics as a whole, courses wouldn't be cut because of the problem that happened over the summer when there wasn't enough course sections for students that we were enrolling, and they would leave dog days without units. So I'm just wondering, how's that going to be fixed so it doesn't happen again?
Yeah, so obviously priority enrollment starts next week, right? So we've told the colleges that if they have the demand for courses and they have the instructors to offer them, then we'll find a way to cover the costs. We do set some minimum class sizes that are compared to other campuses are quite low. So typically it's 12 for lower division, 10 for upper division, and 6 for graduate. Other campuses set the threshold much higher, but we don't want to be in that situation again that we had over the summer when we were scrambling to find sections so that students could take the units that they needed to take. Next year is still a discussion. We don't know what our budget will be next year. We don't know what the enrollment will be next year. And again, because of the timing of everything, it's kind of an ongoing thing. So if we shoot too low, we try and adjust as we go through to make sure that students have classes. But I recognize that knowing the schedule well ahead of time is much easier for you guys to be able to make the plans rather than lead out of the section of maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. Okay, I've been talking for too long. So I'll just leave up this final slide. So this has some links to some resources, including the budget and resource planning page updates that the CFO had mentioned. One thing I did want to mention at the very bottom there, so there's a university budget committee. This is one of the academic senate committees, and it should have a student representative, but the challenge is that it meets at the same time as academic senate. So I don't know, but that would be a great place to have somebody to sit and learn more
I
about.
have a large student already ready for that position, and I just never got reached out to us, so I assumed we didn't meet. So I have students already for that one. If you want a student representative,
It would be great to have the student voice there.
yeah, I can see one.
Okay, and that's all I have.
Does any senator have any final questions? Senator Martinez?
So, in the event that a student can't, they can't reach the full 15 units, or 12 units to be considered full-time, in the event that they can't get to 15 units, or their roadmap is being significantly impacted because that class isn't no longer offered, or they're just, they couldn't get into that class because everything's being affected. Is there a way for I guess that student to possibly find another course that's being offered that could possibly fulfill that requirement? That's something that I personally know students who have done that have to fully customize their roadmap because there was no class offered, or that class was only offered for the springs, whatever the situation may be. They're able to kind of offer a second class that could fulfill that classroom fulfillment. And so is that something that we can look into?
Yeah, it's something that if we're aware of an issue, that's sometimes a challenge. That if students come forward, we know. If they don't, we don't know necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly, programs certainly try to make course substitutions when they can. So it might not be the exact course, but if they feel like there's enough there that they can substitute it, we can do that. Occasionally, students can take independent study to meet some of those requirements. But again, it's really on the academic programs to make the determination that that's going to be okay and that they're comfortable with supporting that. It does happen.
Yeah, because I know there was a year where same thing. I could not become a full-time student because a lot of the classes were no longer being offered, or they got filled up too quickly. So I literally took on a minor just to considered a full-time student. And so, yeah, I just wanted to look at those alternatives.
Yeah, and there's 15 units and there's the right 15 units as well, right? Sometimes I know students take sort of they're eligible for financial aid, and that also might not actually count towards it, and so that's a scheduling issue as well.
Mhm.
Any last question? We'll take one more question. Yeah, we can have a motion to extend the time.
We have to extend the time by like 5 minutes.
Is there a second? Senator Hazan?
I second.
Any discussion or debate? Any competing motions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Okay, we'll extend the time by 5 minutes. We'll do Sevi and then Hazan if that's okay.
Okay, so I'm a communication master's student, and last year the faculty voted to suspend the master's program because lack of faculty, to be blunt, right? We had over the last few years, went from like, I think they said 14 down to 7 tenure track faculty members in the communication department. And just last year, you know, we lost more. So I'm just curious, how do we continue to provide things like, so I want to teach at the community college. I can only do that once I get my master's. They need communication, you know, teachers there because it's part of the general ed requirements. But we can now no longer provide them that, but we're not hiring faculty to replace the need so that we can bring this graduate program back. Where do we start fixing that problem? Is I guess where I'm getting at.
Yeah, and I think part of that is part of what the CFO talked about is we have to take a step back and look at everything. You know, what I've talked about is based on the piece of the pie that we can control, and so based on that, our provost makes a determination on how many faculty can we afford to hire in a year, and then decides which colleges should get those lines, and then the deans have a discussion with the chairs on what are the highest priority. But when you're hiring 11 and 26 and retiring, that's a band-aid, like you say, it's not a long-term strategy. So we need to have a broader discussion about everything. What are our priorities? And try to move forward from there. So I mean, I don't have the answer for you, but I'm sure that there are many other students who are experiencing something like you, where you know maybe the program isn't being suspended, but maybe now that they don't have enough faculty to teach that course that you really wanted to take that would really help you in your career. So yeah, it's a big issue, and it's one that's going to require a campus-wide discussion to figure out how do we allocate resources to support the most important things for the campus.
And where did those discussions like happen? Like who is part of those discussions or initiates those discussions?
About
Like prioritizing and like really looking at what the campus needs and how to fix some of these issues.
it's primarily the college deans talking with the provost and senior leadership in the division. So I know my area. I'm a chemist. I can look at the faculty in the department and see if there's gaps, if they're fine. But I can't look at communications and see that there's a gap. The college deans work with the department chairs all the time, and so that's really where that discussion takes place about, in the College of Arts and Humanities, what's the most critical three hires if we've got three positions.
Senator Hazan.
So this question is kind of in relation to what President Sully was saying earlier. Are there preventative measures already in place to make sure that students aren't left with no classes at the end of dog days again for the upcoming quarter?
So we have a schedule in place, right, for next week. We've asked the deans to look at what the demand is going to be, and if they feel like they don't have enough course sections to meet that demand, then they'll have a conversation with the provost and look to open up new sections. And it's one of those things where you never really know until it starts. So if we get into enrollment next week and we have plenty of seats, then maybe some of those sections won't be opened up. And if they're filling up, then more will be opened up. And what you can see is just the active course sections. And so typically a department will have others set to where you can't see them, but they'll have figured out the time slot and where it'll be taught and who might teach it. And then if the courses that are there fill up, then they'll start to bring those up online and students will be able to enroll. So you know, we'll do our best. Communication is the important piece. So you know, we need to hear if there are issues. Departments need to hear, and then they'll send it up the chain. You know, last summer I know that there were lots of challenges going into the fall, but I know that Provost opened up another, I think, 68 course sections to try and meet that demand. And again, if we knew that in March and had those ready to go, it would be better. But there was a real attempt to try and make sure that students would get classes at least for the fall, and we'll continue to do the same moving forward.
Thank you for coming to speak with us today, and we appreciate all the work you do at Fresno State.
Thank you.
We'll now be moving on to item 7.3, action item, restructuring the VPEX position. Action item presented by the ASI Legal Committee after consideration and agreement from the Executive Board to consider restructuring the Vice President of External Affairs executive position into an appointed delegate of external affairs, with the intent of improving efficiency in day-to-day operations, clarifying responsibilities, and strengthening ASI's external relations. The Student Senate has allocated 15 minutes for this item, and the floor is yours.
Okay, hi everybody. Today we'll be introducing our plans for restructuring the Vice President of External Affairs position. This has been an idea since before my time, but as chair of the legal committee, I'm having the privilege to present to you guys. I'll speak for a bit, then Emmanuel will come up, then I'll go back, and then we'll be able to discuss this, hopefully with some more input from other people involved in this proposal. Before we start, I'd like to emphasize that this is in no way a reflection of our current VPEX, but is instead intended to fix a systemic issue within our ASI structure. If this were to pass, these changes would take effect in the next school year. For review, ASI currently has 4 executives. We have our president, we have our vice president of finance, executive vice president, and vice president of external affairs. Going into our current structure, though, the vice president of external affairs does not have enough core responsibilities to justify being an executive. Yet the role comes with executive privileges, a stipend, and independence from the president's direction. This creates several problems that we'll address. The first one is that there's a proxy conflict. The bylaws establish the president as ASI seat holder on the CSSA board of directors and in other campus positions. The Vice President of External Affairs may serve as the President's proxy at CSSA and similar meetings, but this only works if the VPEX is aligned with the President, right? If the two disagree, the President has every incentive and the ability to withhold this proxy status. In that case, the VPEX becomes redundant and harmful at worst, since ASI presents 2 different faces potentially, right? And this could really undermine our ability to function effectively here. Students absolutely should have a voice and a vote to determine who represents them in these bodies, things like CSSA, but the candidate who has the control over this is the president. The second thing I'd like to call to attention is the risks of the conflict. So disagreement in the Student Senate is healthy and it's expected in a legislative body, but an executive role like VPEX mirrors the president's rights without having the same accountability or defined responsibilities. This imbalance can easily lead to dysfunction. The VPEX has the same perks and visibility without equivalent workload or structural obligations. Unlike the Vice President of Finance and the EVP, who both have clear, heavy responsibilities and accountability to the Senate, VPEX occupies an in-between space with authority and exposure, but little built-in responsibility within our bylaws. This has historically led to unnecessary conflict and inefficiency. When conflict arises between a president and the VPEX, the executive team and Senate can lose valuable time and opportunities. Even 1 or 2 months of dysfunction can prevent an entire cohort from achieving its goals. You know, we're only here for a certain number of months, guys. It's a year-long term. And this could really affect us as a body from moving effectively. But again, not us, but ASI hypothetically in the future. Removing this position will give power to the Senate, but the creation of a new delegate position will ensure that student opportunities are still present. I'd like to make the note that this advocacy position will still serve the role of petitioning legislation. Once again, the president will be the one selecting them still as they have in the past. If Emmanuel would like to come up and speak on this proposed change, and then I'll go back into it.
Yeah, with the issues outlined, the committee proposes that rather than eliminating the position entirely, The role should be restructured as a cabinet-level appointment under the president, i.e. the chief of staff, with oversight from the other executives and the Senate. The title would be reframed as a delegate of external affairs, and the appointment process would consist of the two installed executives, that being the president and VP of finance, jointly interviewing and unanimously recommending a candidate before the installation ceremony, during which the new delegate may be confirmed. The Senate should confirm the appointment of them with a majority vote, providing an additional check and balance, ensuring the role cannot simply be filled by a presidential favor without oversight. If no delegate is installed during the installation ceremony, they can be installed at the first Senate meeting. Hiring will then happen with two out of the three executives agreeing to recommend a candidate before the confirmation from the Senate. If by September no delegate has been appointed, the president can recommend a candidate with a simple majority confirmation from the Senate. The delegate reports directly to the president, functioning as a part of the cabinet, similar to what the chief of staff serves as right now. Once appointed, they are expected to follow the president's direction in external representation, considering that at the end of the day, it represents the president. The stipend should align with the senators, reflecting a similar work commitment and responsibilities. A bi-weekly report should be filed for audit with senator reports, keeping a level of responsibility and accountability. This avoids inflated costs from hourly billing, for example, long travel weekends at CSSA. The delegate may submit expense forms or project proposals through the president, and final approval lies with the president, keeping accountability clear and streamlined. Other responsibilities include attending City Hall for Clovis and Fresno, leading and hosting the government roundtable and/or government meetings with the cohort, helping run voter registration events for the campus community. They'll be responsible for attending every Senate meeting with the expectation of excused absences being excused themselves by the president. Delegate should be responsible for chairing an ad hoc committee when needed for external affairs, such as when elections come around. And if the delegate isn't appointed, the responsibilities will fall under the president's jurisdiction. If the delegate of external affairs is found negligent of these tasks, removal can be initiated by the president with confirmation from the ASI operations manager. The Senate should be notified by the following Senate meeting. In the instance of removal, the president shall take all responsibilities left vacant, and a new delegate can be appointed by the president with a 2/3 majority confirmation vote from the Senate.
Thank you for that. Once again, I'd like to highlight the benefits of this change. The first thing is that restores balance, right? If we're having executives, having an even number makes things a bit difficult. Changing the executive committee to 3 members, president, EVP, and VP of finance, makes voting a lot more practical. This also clarifies accountability. The delegate is held accountable to the president, the other executives, and the Senate. Reduces historical dysfunction. Again, this isn't an issue now. We've had a great experience so far, but clarifying the chain of command right now could ensure that the delegate can fulfill the role of being the president's proxy without future power struggles that are possible. It does also, though, keep external affairs covered. We're going to have this position still here. The job is going to be done, and it's going to have its relevance, but it's appropriately scoped and put in its place. It's going to get fair compensation. By matching senator stipends, the role is compensated appropriately without creating an unnecessary financial burden. We also will have a stronger appointment right. A competitive application process overseen by executives and confirmed by the Senate helps guarantee that the person filling the role actually wants to be there and is qualified, instead of simply winning an election without the necessary commitment. So to conclude this, restructuring the VPEX into an appointed cabinet role would strengthen ASI's accountability to the students and the Student Senate. It would also potentially reduce the internal conflict that has historically been experienced. I've heard stories between the role of President and VPEX and will ensure external representation aligned to the President's direction. It also balances the executive committee at 3 members, keeping the decision-making efficient and clear. Most importantly, it ensures that limited one-year terms are not wasted on dysfunction here, but are instead focused on serving students effectively. Now we can move on to any questions or discussion of this. I'd be happy to answer, but we have a lot of people who are knowledgeable here of this too.
We'll open the floor for questions, starting with Senator Jovanian.
I know one of the problems outlined was the minimal responsibilities. Has it been considered to up the responsibilities of this position and keep it just an alternative to just
yeah, I'll speak to that first, and then I think we should have other people speak to that as well. The first thing I would note is that if we're upping these responsibilities, then where are they going to be coming from? Are they going to be taken from someone else's position? Are they going to be taken from the president's power? Also, do we want to reinforce that the Senate should be the body that's having more confidence and more action here, or would we want to give more power to the exec? And then that is one of the issues, but other issues are significant relating to the proxy status and the strike status, or not the strike status, the 3-person voting body status. And so even on that basis, even if we gave them more power or more obligations, the other issues wouldn't be resolved. But I don't know if someone else wants to speak to that.
Yeah, just because within the executive body, I think the kind of roles pertain to like that body. So for example, like BPF, they do all the MOUs, and we couldn't really delegate that out to external affairs. And then with EVP, they couldn't really meet one-on-one with senators and so on and so forth. I think for the other positions, their duties are more outlined for their position, if that makes sense.
Any quick comment about that? So with regard to upping the responsibilities you listed here for the delegate, could that not be applied to just BPEX as a foundation, or?
These are their current responsibilities.
Okay.
So the delegate will be taking these responsibilities over from what BPEX has been doing, but it's just the structural dynamic of it that's going to be changed.
Any additional questions? Senator Sebi?
I'm just curious, so one of those duties being going to the city council meetings for Fresno and Clovis. How often do they meet? How long do those meetings last? Like, just I'm curious if you could speak to that, like time commitment for that position.
I can answer that. So Fresno City Council and Clovis City Council, they meet every other week. Usually those meetings, like Fresno City Council, they last a really long time. Freddie has gone with me too. But right now, like I'll talk about our report too, but I'm trying to work on getting a permanent slot in the agendas at those city councils for like BPEX or any other position to be able to go and speak on and give reports on higher education occurrences happening at our institution, and also work on getting that role for city colleges as well. But because currently as stands right now, BPEX or like this delegate position would only be able to speak during public comment, and the way they structure public comment at City Hall is unstructured, so that it takes longer than anticipated. Whereas here, you can just come in the beginning, speak for your 3 minutes, and leave. Currently at City Hall, you have to be able to speak whenever they want to hear you. So last time we were there, we got there around like 9:30, and we were there till noon, and they still hadn't heard public comment. So that you can see is like one time limit. While I have the floor, I don't know if I can make any other comments, but I do want this to be mostly a senator-led discussion, so I just want to be mindful of that. Yeah. One thing I would like to mention that is not listed in the responsibilities for this delegate position is sitting on internal committees at Fresno State. I sit on multiple committees at Fresno State, and I feel like that internal experience informs a lot of my external responsibilities as well. So I would like to mention that whether we keep the position as BPEX or remove it to the delegate position, that also has to be outlined. And the amount of work that goes into sitting on those committees as well, I don't know if it genuinely reflects the time commitment that a delegate would have outlined in their compensation. So like if you're having more responsibilities but also like less compensation, I'm not sure how I feel about that as a delegate going forward, because again, I do sit on multiple other committees, and that is really important. So that way, when I go to CSSA, when I go to City Council, I know what other things are happening on campus and I can answer questions. Like when I go to CSSA to talk about AI, I sit on the AI Research and Discovery Committee, so I can talk about that. And there's currently a white paper that's being passed at CSSA on AI, so having that research experience is really helpful. Sitting on Academic Senate, that gives me a lot of insight into what students and what faculty are thinking about on campus. And then again, like this all just like internally informs the external responsibilities of the role. And then just one more comment too. I want you all to consider just like the anecdotal evidence presented from previous years and how that's informing the proposition on the table today, and how you feel about like using anecdotal evidence as, I guess, a basis to evaluate the potential of future people in this role or similar roles. If you have any other questions, I'm welcome to answer, but I want this to be your discussion, so thank you.
Could I speak to that too? I understand anecdotal evidence is there, but the basis of this is what's in the bylaws, right? And we're actually looking at an expected hypothetical in the sense of what could happen. It's not just saying this has happened. It's the role, and we're so happy with how above and beyond we've seen people go, but it's just structurally what's outlined has a lot of potential for conflict within the bylaws. This is what we have outlined, and there's issues that if anyone who reads through these is seeing because it's been brought up, right? And so, and the other thing is that these committees that are being sat on, I have no doubt that this information really does help, but then it still calls into question the error with, or the issue with proxy status, right? If the president is still having them represent, if say the VPEX has a different takeaway from that committee meeting than the president would from a similar committee or similar involvement, is the president still going to have the ability to just override that and withhold proxy status? But sorry, if someone else wants to go ahead and speak to that.
Senator Durham.
I guess this is another question kind of piggybacking off of that. Rather than like taking this position away from the Senate and like turning it into a delegate position, why not change the bylaws so that there is still some sort of hierarchy between the president and the VPEX that still allows for some autonomy on the committees that they sit on, but in regards to like CSSA, outlines more of a presidential role where they're going in as a proxy and kind of like recognizing that more than them going in as an individual. Why not like restructure that?
I'll have to answer that one. And this one is a real easy because if any of you got elected and any of them told you what to do, how'd you feel? Like if you got elected as a student position, right? You guys get elected in the virtue of you being elected and making your own choices. The EVP, the president, none of these executives can tell you what to do as senators. You have obligations that you have to deal with, like reports, due dates, things of the sort. But imagine getting elected and then someone else is telling you exactly what to do, how to do it, when to do it, right? Which is really the difference. You can't, even if you adjust the bylaws, there's large legal liability here of being in an elected position and then somebody being your boss after that.
Senator Hassan.
With regard to removing this position, what does that mean for the External Affairs Committee? Would it be chaired by the delegate, or what?
I know we've suggested the ad hoc committee role being changed. Could we go more into that? I'm less familiar with the role of the External Affairs Committee. I don't know if anyone else could speak to that, just so I don't misspeak. Because I know we discussed this when we were rearranging this part. This was just a part that I delegated when we were discussing it with the bylaw changes.
Someone from the External Affairs Committee.
Yeah.
Oh.
So wait, would you want to know, like, are you talking about like the entire function of the committee, or?
With this position in our proposed change, I think this is something we do have to address with it, but we have discussed that the committee will be a new ad hoc committee at need, right? That is what has been recommended. If you could go into anything on the External Affairs Committee, I'm sure that'd be helpful for this discussion.
I could sort of give like an overview of what we do. So every committee meeting, we have like our members and obviously me and Kirsten too, where we have our regular reports. And on these reports, we sort of have like different areas which we all target. Suppose recently AI was a big talk. So all of us, like, you know, we have our own particular tasks to go behind. And we sort of report those tasks like during every external affairs like committee meeting. And we have the chair who sort of advises us, and we sort of work together as a group to sort of focus on those issues. And I'm not allowed to talk about like any further part.
You can talk about whatever you want.
Okay. Yeah. So recently, one of our other like members brought out the idea for a non-resident tuition fee. I think Cody's right here. So yeah, we did speak about that, and it's just that I believe like this is really important because I haven't seen strong representation for international students. I've only seen that because of this particular External Affairs Committee, and yeah, everything else.
Senator Martinez.
I can also add on to that. So kind of like what Senator Martinez was going into, I've learned a lot from this committee. The External Affairs Committee has honestly opened my eyes to a lot of different things that can potentially like stuff that really affect students, but we're not talking about things within Fresno State. We're talking about things that affect students outside of Fresno State and some of the outside factors that affect students. And we've worked on, as you guys know, the resolution that passed recently. We've helped with getting students to to vote and use their voice. And so I see a lot of value in the External Affairs Committee, and I can't really see it being working within as ad hoc, because there's always going to be things externally that affect students, and I feel like as a committee, it's our job to be aware of those things and constantly see how we can help students. And I think we shouldn't, seeing that a student to be a delegate of this, hopefully I'm using the right wording, but there's just so much that goes into it. There's so many like outside research you have to do. There's so many things internally, like Danielle was saying that, Vu was saying, like, I just can't see the time commitment being possible and properly compensated. There's so many things that has to go into the External Affairs Committee that we do, and so many things to be aware of. So it's honestly constantly a learning experience, and I appreciate the External Affairs Committee for existing for that reason. And I'll leave it at that.
And then can we get a motion on this item to extend time? If there's further discussion. Senator Hazan?
I motion to extend time by
10 minutes, you said?
10 minutes.
Okay, perfect. And then do we have a second? Senator Singh?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion or debate? Any competing motions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? The motion to extend time by 10 minutes passes. And then what other questions do we have? Senator Hazan?
So back to my question, who would chair the ad hoc committee if there's no VPEX?
The delegate will, and when needed, and they will be responsible for chairing it. And if a delegate isn't appointed, which is a scenario we have accounted for, the president will be in charge of that.
Okay, and follow-up question. With regard to the committee itself, would it still serve the same purpose?
I mean, dealing with external affairs, yes.
Okay.
It seems there's a lot of leeway within what is actually focused on in terms of external affairs, because it's a general concept, and that absolutely will hold up, yeah. Some of those things also, I could see realistically being subsumed within other committees and other things, but the ad hoc committee with extremely pertinent information, and we've had a lot of success, as far as I understand, with ad hoc committees in the past, rising to address specific conflicts. So I wouldn't write that off immediately, but yeah, it would be chaired by the delegate.
Senator Sevi?
Have we not considered a compromise and something that looks similar to the VPEX position, where there's an extra at-large senator that then gets voted on by the Senate to become the external affairs?
It's similar to what Freddie had spoken to, though. The VPEX, their role is subsidiary to the president. Most of their roles need to be proxied by the president, and so they would have no effective power if they were. It just is contrary to what a senator does.
No, they wouldn't be a senator. They would get, just like when we voted Maris to become the executive vice president, there's an extra senator at large, and then we vote on whoever wants to put their name forward, just like Maris did, to become the VP of External Affairs. And they're chosen from the senators at large, not a delegate, and not running on their own platform, but that we still get control to make sure that they align with the president and can serve as it's a middle ground.
But then,
Right.
do you recommend we lose a senator then?
No, so instead of doing 18 senators, 19, sorry, we add an extra senator at large and drop the, brain work. So during elections, you have your executive committee that would run, which would just be president and finance. Right?
Before this.
What?
President and finance vote, yes.
Yes.
The only two executive roles that would be run will be president and finance.
Everybody else is either a college senator running or a senator at large. We add an extra senator at large so that when we pull from that, we can pull the executive vice president and the external affairs?
I think it's
The same process.
It makes sense what you're saying, but we would still have an issue, and I'm happy to have some discussion around this because I'm still kind of wrapping my head around it too. But the idea still would be that it would be a fourth executive is what you're suggesting, which still would have the imbalance, and then if there's still an executive, then it still has all the same issues. Right now, it would really just change who gets, it would actually take less power out of the students, and it would be more just within the Senate then, right?
Right, but at least the senates are also elected, right? Like they understand that they're going in as a senator at large, that they have the opportunity to do that. Like that's one of the roles for the senator at large that they're.
And the Senate would confirm whoever is appointed to this position already in the delegate.
Right, but we don't have any control over the application process.
I think what he's trying to say is you also wouldn't have control of who would run for that position in that same way then.
Yeah.
Like how you wouldn't have control over application process and then.
Right, but we would have people who actually ran for Senate
Who-
before
why-
they applied, is what I'm saying. And like had to win an election.
But they're still a liaison. They're just representing the president. That's okay.
So, sorry, just as someone who, I guess, works with VPAC, especially at CSSA, I see two problems with that because you can't guarantee that would align with the president necessarily, which then the conflict would arise again of them not getting along. And from a political standpoint of like knowing, like of studying the government, I guess not like studying the government is, it makes sense for EVP to be elected by the Senate because it's chairing the Senate and it's the Senate's representative in the executive committee. So then when VPEX is appointed by the Senate in that way, which the Senate already has a voice on because they confirm it, regardless of who the president and the VPF at that time decide on, it then makes them a liaison with the Senate instead of making them hand in hand with the president. And like, I love you guys, we all get along, I love everyone here, and I'm hoping everyone likes me too. But like, there's been instances where the president and the Senate do not get along, which then would create a conflict because once that position's in, you're working with the president hand in hand for CSSA, for City Hall, for example, for the at-large committees, for external affairs. It's like supposed to be like a partnership in a way because they're both external at the end of the day and they work with government and politics. So that's the concerns I would see from like the exact perspective of it. And it would still, the issues I guess that they're trying to solve, whether we agree with making it a delegate or not, would still arise with that at the same time.
Okay, so to follow up from that, why not just appoint, like, you choose a proxy instead of it being part of somebody's, because then that'll get rid of all that issue if you're just choosing your own proxy.
I think
That's what we're doing.
That's what delegates are doing.
Right, but not getting rid of.
But the workload is so much, just to speak, that a senator would be a different position.
Like, sorry, just go over. You mean like a chief of staff position where I just like pick someone?
Yes.
To be a proxy for CSSA and all that?
Yes.
But then that's what VPEX was built to do. That's the only concern with that. That's why, I guess, that's why the original idea of VPEX started, was to alleviate that for the president to work hand in hand externally. So that's I guess, why. But sorry, I'm done speaking. That's not why. This is not my head.
And then we have time for maybe one or two more questions. Senator Hernandez.
I do have a question about the proposal for the delegate. As like committee-wise, would they not be sitting on internal committees anymore? Since it is a lot of workload, what is the new compensation looking like? Or what are the new?
The compensation would be similar to that of a senator. Expectations have been lined out here. It's the city hall time, government roundtable, and then working with going to meetings, and that roughly aligns with about the hourly for senators with that stipend. But the internal committees, I don't think we'll be having this delegate sit on that. And that'll give more opportunities for senators, I'm assuming, to be in different committees, or if we want to have more people from other students that are selected, from these internal affairs committees.
Would this not add more workload to the president as well, or how are we working around that?
Well, the gist of it is that the delegate, if there was a VPEX that was totally opposed to the president, then there would be way more work for everybody involved, right? Because then the president would have to do everything on their own if they saw no need for it. And so this would actually, the intention is to minimize work for the president to allow congruity between them and a liaison, or a delegate. The terminology isn't super relevant. But they would be able to alleviate that, and just the main thing is, that's the point.
Senator Trelanian.
The main issue that I kind of see is that the president and the VPACs could disagree. Could there be a new requirement when running for presidency president to run together, which is what usually happens anyways.
Well, then would the president and the VPEX be getting 2 votes on executive committee, or is it just the president with the delegate then? Because then there's a whole other, I think, set of issues coming to that, and then the revisions to the bylaws required in that would be difficult. But I see where you're coming from, but it's just, yeah.
We've hit 10 minutes. Do we want another motion, or are we ready for a vote?
I would like to keep discussing. I think being clear at least if we agree or disagree would be beneficial to all of us.
Okay, can we have a motion to extend time then? Senator Sevi?
I'm going to extend time by 5 more minutes.
And then do we have a second?
Second.
Senator Durham?
I second.
Okay. Do we have any discussion or debate? Any competing motions? All those in favor to extend time by 5 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? The motion to extend time by 5 minutes passes. And then what questions are there? Senator Sevi?
Okay, so the scenario of the president and the VP of External Affairs not getting along, that's been brought up a lot as a hypothetical. And I'm just curious, do we not have any language in our bylaws and in our rules that would check either of those positions if they're not fulfilling their roles already? Like if the VPEX refuses to align and be the proxy for the president where they're supposed to be at, can't we not as a Senate say, hey, do your job or you're fired?
It'd be the other way. It would, well, if the president has a lack of confidence in the VPEX to adequately represent them, then the president has every incentive, again, to just directly quote it, to not send them, right? And it gives them more work, but then would you fire an executive on the basis of they have their own opinions as opposed to a delegate? Because you can't fire, they're an elected position.
Yeah, it is an elected position. So if they're elected and so is the president, right, then if they can't work together, then why are they serving in a government?
Okay. There's people from opposition parties elected.
Well, it's not
to the
about
government at the same
opposition,
time.
it's about representing the student body, right? And if we don't feel like one of them is doing their jobs, is it not already written into the bylaws that we can say, okay, you're not doing your job?
I think we have different ideas, though, sometimes of how people should do their jobs, right? And people aren't always in agreement.
But that's what the bylaws are for, right? Isn't it laid out in the bylaws?
No, though, because different people have different political opinions. It's not that they're in
I thought we were
disalignment.
apolitical though.
Well, political in relation to the school, of how they want to manage the school.
Okay.
Any further questions? Senator Durham?
I guess I'm just still confused because in my mind, like when you're coming into the senator position, you're signing up to work with people and you're signing up to kind of collaborate, and I don't think that a difference in opinion really constitutes the dissolving of an entire position. That kind of just feels like it needs to be worked through by, if that happens, it needs to be worked out by the president and the VPEX. And I understand that it's happened in the past, but if it's not something that we're worried about now, and it's not something that's an impending issue, I don't really understand why the Senate needs to take immediate action on it.
I think the reason for it ahead of time is relating to the election set of rules that are going out later, so we could establish who's going to be running. Are we going to have this position on the ballot next year? And I think I would push back on that. I think in government, in anything, there's going to be disagreement between people, and how we resolve them in a lot of ways is a matter of how we handle that in the bylaws and who's going to have more power. And I think it's necessary to address that all the Vice President of Finance, the VPEX, and the President all have outlined rules and obligations, but the VPEX could entirely be stifled by the President if they wanted to, because the President has that power over them. And so if we have a situation where that position is entirely doing nothing by virtue of them having totally different views for how the school should be ran, it's going to create an ineffective government. It's going to create people, every time there's a vote, the executives are going to be, they could be 2-2, and it could be absolutely stifled. And we are on short terms here.
So follow-up question.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to Senator Chovanyan's question earlier, why not then just expand the roles of VPEX to, like, personally, based off of what I'm seeing that outline job description is,
I feel like there's definitely more that VPEX could do if that was like
That's what
if
senators
they
do.
were being stifled by the president. Like they could do intercollegiate outreach. They can do more outreach with like high schools and places around the area. Like external affairs isn't just government relations; it's all of our external relations. So that's where I'm just like, could we not be more creative with this position and expand it?
The creativity would be towards giving that to the senator to give more representation to them, because if you have someone who's half constrained to only doing what the president is suggesting and then is suddenly having roles taken from what a senator would have, does that take away their agency, or are they going to be an effective member of the body? Because these things that you recommend, they are helpful. I totally agree. But the allocation of them towards VPEX, would that be the right decision? Would it, as opposed to giving it to a senator? We're crossing 5 minutes, right?
We are across the 5 minutes. Senator Hassan. Do we have a second?
I move to question. To vote. No, to vote. I move to question, to vote.
I would like to extend the moment at least for another 5 minutes, I would make a statement, but I'm happy to. Or I have a competing motion then, I guess, so we move forward.
We have 2 competing motions on the floor, so we'll go ahead and get a second for the motion to vote if there's anyone who wants to vote. Senator Hernandez. Okay. And then we have a competing motion on the floor. And then we'll go ahead and vote on the motion to vote first. All those in favor of voting say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Sorry.
Any abstentions? Okay, we'll go ahead and move to a roll call vote, starting with Senator Armstrong. Senator Kamling?
No.
Senator Carrillo? Senator Chobanian?
No.
Senator Durham?
No.
Senator Guzman?
No.
Senator Hazan?
No.
Senator Hernandez?
No.
Senator Hill?
Yes.
Senator Martinez?
Yes.
Senator Marcos?
Yes.
Senator Anales?
No.
Senator Pierce?
No.
Senator Renteria?
No.
Senator Rivera?
Yes.
Senator Sebi?
No.
Senator Singh?
No.
Senator Vane?
No.
With the vote count of 14 noes and 4 yeses, the motion fails, sorry. This was sorry, Senator Hazan.
Point of clarification. I believe people thought that they were voting for the action item and not voting to vote.
Yes.
Do we want to do a recall?
Can we elaborate on that?
Yes. I was totally lost on that.
Yes.
And like, what was yes or no for?
You were voting on whether or not to vote. Yeah. Not on the action item.
Because you guys confused.
I was going the opposite way. No. Lock
We're not talking about time. We're voting to.
What did you guys think you were voting on? Just for action item? Action item itself?
I wasn't sure if it was the motion to go to vote or not.
Please, motion on the item, please.
If you motioned on the action item, raise your hand.
Motion to
If you motioned on, if you voted on the action item, raise your hand.
Please formally read your vote before going into voting. Not that.
So now there's
Now they're gonna be discussing.
Now we're voting on whether or not we should go into a vote. So that's going to be the official vote, just for point of clarification. So if we want to go into a vote and not extend time, that's what we're voting on right now. Okay. Starting with Senator Armstrong. Starting with Senator Kimley.
Yes.
Senator Cadillo.
Yes.
Senator Chavani. Senator Durham.
Yes.
Senator Guzman.
Yes.
Senator Hazan.
Yes.
Senator Hernandez.
Yes.
Senator Hill.
Yeah.
Senator Martinez.
Yeah.
Senator Marcos.
Yes.
Senator Ornelas.
Yes.
Senator Pierce.
Yes.
Senator Renteria.
Yes.
Senator Rivera.
Yes.
Senator Sebi.
Yes.
Senator Singh.
Yes.
Senator Vane.
Yes.
Now we'll be voting on this item itself, of restructuring the VPEX position into a delegate position. And so a yes would be restructuring it into a delegate position, and a no would be not restructuring it and keeping it as a VPEX position. Are there any questions? Okay. So voting on the item, starting with Senator Armstrong.
No.
Senator Kamling.
No.
Senator Cadillo.
No.
Senator Chavanian.
No.
Senator Durham.
No.
Senator Guzman.
No.
Senator Hazan.
No.
Senator Hernandez.
No.
Senator Hill.
Yes.
Senator Martinez. Senator Marcos.
Yes.
Senator Ornelas.
No.
Senator Pierce.
No.
Senator Renteria.
No.
Senator Rivera.
Yes.
Senator Sebi.
No.
Senator Singh.
No.
Senator Vane.
No.
With the vote count of yes, 3 yeses and 15 noes, the motion fails.
Thanks for your time.
We'll now be moving on to action item 7.4. The Senate will consider approving $6,000 in funding for stocking of the second wellness vending machine in partnership with the Student Health and Counseling Center in spring 2026. This initiative presented by President Saleh aims to expand access to free essential health and wellness products for students, addressing increased demand and supporting campus-wide well-being initiatives. The Student Senate has allocated 15 minutes for this item, and the floor is yours.
Okay, let me pull it up if it'll load. I will try to keep this short, but obviously I'm here for questions. I don't want to rush anything as important as this. But I also passed out a proposal flyer of the data and statistics of the first machine, which is downstairs in the RSU if you haven't used it, that Alicia provided from the Health Center. Thank you, and thank you for being here today and sticking throughout the whole meeting. But the proposal is linked on the agenda, but basically in 2023 to 2024, the ASI Senate approved funding for a Student Health and Counseling Center wellness machine downstairs in the RSU. And the machine was created to provide convenient and affordable access to essential wellness products like hygiene items, over-the-counter medications, and other health necessities. Most of it is free. Others are at a reduced cost, which is more down. I detail out some examples, and it says it on the proposal. And then in 2024 to 2025, the ASI Senate, so last year's Senate, supported the machine furthermore by allocating $12,000 during the annual budget call in April, so that because the machine itself was, I believe, from a grant that it provided that, but the items itself needed to be funded, which is what the budget call allocated for this year to fund the items that are downstairs in that machine. I believe that the Health Center every 3 times a week will go and restock it because of its high demand. And now there's going to be another grant provided through the Fresno Madera Society for the machine, to build the machine. And so this proposal is asking the Senate, all of you guys, to approve $6,000 to stock this machine for the spring, because this machine would be in the spring. So the $6,000 is for the spring. And just some statistics also on that proposal is that 300 to 500 students monthly use this machine downstairs. It's about 1,000 transactions monthly, and 36% of the transactions occur outside of operating hours of the Wellness Center. A part of this grant was that they wanted it at a space that's in a building that's open at a long period of times, and so the RSU was one of those. And so we pushed out a survey recently. It's only been a week, but I believe it got over 50 respondents of students of what they wanted and where they wanted the machine specifically, and it's up to campus leadership to decide. And so we could also ask you guys that question, but I know there's time constraints. But I know the library was one. I know the dorms was a section. I know the rec center was a section. So we want a building that's open after hours, and the idea was across campus, so that it's for those students that don't come to this side of campus. But it can't be, for example, like at the SSU, which is not open all the time, or open past 5 p.m. And so there's the place is still being discussed, but if this is approved, it would be 3 months to build the machine and ship it out, and it's for free. And then, so the estimated of when this machine would go into place is February or March-ish. And so I have the timeline down there. And I guess some deliverables is like there's 12 free wellness products like menstrual kits, toothpaste, toothbrushes, deodorant, Narcan, and then 8 reduced wellness products. Like I bought ibuprofen the other day for $1, emergency contraceptives, cough drops. And if you're using something that has cost, it builds it to your student account, so you don't have to pay at that time because you're swiping in your card if you haven't used the machine. And yeah, you guys have the proposal, and Alicia's here with me for any questions. Sorry, I didn't, like you guys have the proposal, so I don't want to take too much time up on it, but I'm here for any questions.
Are there any questions today? Seeing and hearing none, we'll now open the floor for motions on item 7.4, approval of funding for stocking a second wellness position. Senator Marcos?
Motion to vote.
Senator Renteria? Okay. Are there any competing motions? Any discussion or debate? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on with a roll call vote, starting with Senator Armstrong.
Yes.
Senator Camlin?
Yes.
Senator Carrillo? Senator Chavanian?
Yes.
Senator Durham?
Yes.
Senator Guzman?
Yes.
Senator Hazan?
Yes.
Senator Hernandez?
Yes.
Senator Hill?
Yes.
Senator Martinez?
Yes.
Senator Marcos?
Yes.
Senator Anales?
Yes.
Senator Pierce?
Yes.
Senator Renteria?
Yes.
Senator Rivera?
Yes.
Senator Sadi?
Yes.
Senator Singh?
Yes.
Senator Vane?
Yes.
With the unanimous yes count vote, the motion passes. We'll now be moving on to action item 7.5, approval of funding 24/7 library access for finals. The Senate will consider approving $5,000 in funding to support the university library's extended 24/7 operating hours during finals week. This initiative, presented by President Saleh, aims to provide students with a safe and accessible study space throughout finals to promote academic success and student well-being. The Student Senate has allocated 15 minutes for this item, and the floor is yours.
Hey guys, thank you. Another item. So as stated, this would be a 24/7 study space during fall finals week. So December 14th to the 18th, and it's going to be in the library. It would be a small portion of the library due to how big it is, the safety concerns, and the amount of students that they've had previously. So a little bit of the history is, there's an article hyperlinked into history, literally the subtitle, that this has been done before with the help of ASI, and what the 5K is, let me break that down, it's on there, is it's $3,728.12 for parking and traffic operations security for every single night. And then the remaining is ASI provided snacks for each night for the students who will be there, because something different that's going to happen this time is you can't really like DoorDash or Uber Eats any food. So our goal is to provide students with food every night. And I know the University Affairs, if this passes, would work on that, and they would establish what they would like for that, just so that it's more of a team for this. And so yeah, I've discussed with the library. This has been an initiative we've been discussing the whole semester. We met with parking and traffic operations. The library is starting to me about like the logistics of it, just in case, well, you know, preparing if it does pass. But yeah, it's just an initiative I'm bringing back. It was done, I believe, before COVID by an ASI. And what we really fund is the parking and traffic operations security that the library can't fund, so that students are safe, since it would be 24/7 during fall finals week. And the reason we chose the fall is I know their data usage, because she had given me, the Dean Crum had given me numbers for the fall and spring. It's a lot more heavily utilized in this fall, and it's something that she's also newer. She's like in her second year. She wanted to do it sooner and see how it goes. And I do know that they had given me usage of before COVID, it would be like 100-ish students a night, estimating, because it falls like once 3 a.m. hits, it's a lot less students. So yeah, I don't know if I missed anything, but this would be for this semester. And really, it's just to promote student-centered success and academic success as a study space 24/7 during a really impactful and stressful time of their academic period of the semester. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm here for that.
Are there any questions on the floor? Seeing and hearing none, we'll now open the floor for motions on item 7.5, action item approval of funding 24/7 finals library access. Senator Chomani,
Motion to approve.
is there a second? Senator Renteria,
Second.
is there any competing motion on the floor? Any discussion or debate? We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Senator Armstrong.
Yes.
Senator Kimley,
Yes.
Senator Carrillo,
Yes.
Senator Chavanian,
Yes.
Senator Durham,
Yes.
Senator Guzman,
Yes.
Senator Hazan,
Yes.
Senator Hernandez,
Yes.
Senator Hill,
Yes.
Senator Martinez,
Yes.
Senator Marcos,
Yes.
Senator Anales,
Yes.
Senator Pierce,
Yes.
Senator Renteria,
Yes.
Senator Rivera,
Yes.
Senator Seti,
Yes.
Senator Singh,
Yes.
Senator Vane. With the unanimous yes count vote, the motion passes. We'll now be moving on to approval of the consent calendars. Moving on to action item 7.6, consent calendar presented by Kamala Soleil. ASI President Soleil will present the consent calendar containing all proposed ASI committee appointments. The Student Senate shall vote to affirm or deny the consent calendar, and the Student Senate has reserved 5 minutes for this item.
Sorry, I'm speaking too much in this Senate meeting. It's not my time. But those are my academic Senate committee appointments. If anyone has any questions, please let me know, and I'll yield the rest of my time.
Is there a motion on the floor? Senator Hazan?
I motion.
Is there a second? Senator Chavanian?
I second that motion.
Any competing motion? Any discussion or debate? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? The motion passes. Moving on to action item 7.7, financial consent calendar. ASI VPF Guzman will present the financial consent calendar containing all proposed grants. The Student Senate shall vote to affirm or deny the consent calendar, and the Student Senate has reserved 5 minutes for this item.
Okay, there's only 2 things on the consent calendar, each for $3,000 for Fresno State men's rugby and then for the state hockey squad. And then that's it.
Is there a motion on the floor? Senator Durham?
Motion is approved.
Senator Hernandez?
The second.
Is there any competing motion? Any discussion or debate? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? The motion to approve the consent calendar passes. We'll be moving on to item 8.0, second public comment. Members of the public are again invited to address the Senate on any issues related to ASI or California State University, Fresno. Each speaker is allotted up to 3 minutes. If there's any public comment, please approach the podium. Seeing and hearing none, we'll now move forward to item 9.0, reports. First item is 9.1, executive report, starting with President Soleil.
Sorry, I don't want to assume everyone can hear me. Yeah, if you would like specifics, please refer to my report. But the only thing I have is the student swap meet that's happening this Thursday is now going to be in this room, 207, due to the rain, but yay rain. And so Luis sent out an invite, but at 11 a.m. is set up if anyone can help. And the event will be from 11:30 to 2:30 p.m. And we got a lot of donations, so it'll just be like racks. I'm sure you guys have seen them organized. Thanks, shout out to our intern, anyone. There'll be racks. And so like students will have, we have like little tote bag, shopping bags, they'll be able to collect clothing and get a lot of resource guides. Oh, and Diana, sorry, Diana. Hey Glenda. Sorry guys, shout out to everyone who's there, I love everyone. So anyways, it's all free for students. There will be a free Dutch truck by the RSU, also free for students. Each student will get a ticket, the first 150 students. And yeah, if you guys can make it either to set up or just to come and shop, we have like tote bags we ordered. That would be really great, and there's a lot of clothing, and so I think it'll be cool, and that's all I have. I yield the rest of my time.
I don't want to keep you here for too much longer, but we had the event at South Valley on the Visalia campus, and that was a huge success, celebrating Halloween with the students out there. And then I've had the opportunity to continue meeting with each of you one-on-one this past month, and it was great to hear all the progress you guys have going on in your projects, and you guys are doing absolutely amazing, so congratulations there, and I look forward to continue meeting with you one-on-one. And then I'm collaborating with Senator Chavanian on the parking and transportation survey, so if you don't mind helping us with outreach on that, we would be really appreciative for giving out free parking passes to our learners there. So yeah, thank you. And with that, I yield my time.
Okay, I'm gonna be brief as well. If you want to look into my specifics, you can look at my report. But I just want to mention any clubs or orgs that are applying for grants, you're more than welcome to attend our finance committee meetings if to answer any of the committee members' questions. And then what else? Also, I don't know if you guys saw my Telegram, but your polos are in your hoodies. And with that, I yield my time.
I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but CSSA was over this last weekend, and there was a white paper that was proposed where it just basically is a report of AI occurrences on campus and how we can be able to center student voices in those conversations. Right now, External Affairs Committee is trying to think about how we can also make transfer processes easier to Fresno State and to CSU, and then planning to meet with the CSSA president as well to kind of talk about what transfer processes look like across all the CSUs. But if you have any other questions, look at my report. You can ask me after. I yield my time.
We'll now open the floor for item 9.2, Senator report, starting with Senator Armstrong.
Hello everybody. I'll make it quick. For me, we're just still looking forward to making QR codes for envelopes for the Loving Detergent disbursements. I'll be able to get in contact with the HMC when I'll be able to do tabling. I'm going to do it by the door. So that'll probably happen this month. And
project. We met with the Math Science Teacher Initiative project where they are programs that provides pathways and stipends for students to become STEM teachers, which is really cool. And then if anyone wants to collaborate on social media and trying to get my social media more active, please let me know. And with that, I yield my time.
Hi guys, so for me, I've been working on the food drive. Initially, the food drive was supposed to end today, however, I did extend it to November 19th. So if you guys are part of like any clubs, organizations, or if you just want to donate, please do. You take anything non-perishable because just because of the time that we're going through right now. But tomorrow during the swap meet, we are tabling, we are celebrating World Kindness Day with the University Affairs Committee. Also, if you guys want to come and like help out with that, I would very much appreciate it. And that will be tomorrow from 11:30 to basically when supplies run out. So yeah, with that, I do yield my time.
Hi everyone, as EVP Paula mentioned, we released a survey, so I'd really appreciate if you could share it. There's 5 parking passes going out from my constituent outreach fund, so there's a little incentive. Hopefully there will be an event coming soon, but with that I yield my time.
Hey guys, for any of the events I'm putting on, please refer to my report, and yield my time.
Hi guys, so I just want to promote the film screening that me and my committee are having. I don't know if a lot of you guys know what the film is about, but it's very relevant and something that affects us because it's about college students. I'm just going to read a quick overview. It's a documentary called The Encampments that explores the 2024 Gaza Solidarity Encampments at Columbia University and their expansion to other campuses. And what the film is basically about, it's protests that students were doing that called universities to cut financial ties with companies that supplied war weapons. So that's basically like our money going into war weapons, and it's very, very relevant right now. And I would not only recommend you guys to support, but also just to educate yourselves on that. And it's a really good film, and we're gonna have like free stuff too. Sorry guys, it's really important. And then with that, I yield my time.
Basically what Senator Guzman just said, within the Super Point, we also are going to be getting out, or there's tea available, best tea in the world, guys, trust me, I vouch for this. Food, but also pins, stickers, just for you guys to be able to like really support yourself in this experience. It'll be this Friday, 5 to 7 in RSU downstairs, so if you're available, we would love to have you guys there. Another thing I'm working on is a toy drive. That I should have boxes by the end of the week distributed on campus, so if you guys can like promote that to everyone you know, maybe you want to donate, maybe you know someone who wants to donate toys, it'll go to elementary students at Kirk Elementary School. But with that, I yield my time.
Hi everyone. I will be having my collaboration event with OCSL this next Wednesday, November 19th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It is a commuter good stop, but I have seen a strong overlap with transfer students and community students. So I collaborated with Senator Guzman and Senator Carrillo. We will be providing $30, $25 gas cards. It will be by the speakers platform. If you guys want to show up and support, that would be great. We will also be providing a hot cocoa bar. Another project I've been working on with Senator Rivera and Senator Armstrong is bringing back 6 banners for the student veterans that bring representation. Hopefully we want to be able to pass it, but I have been speaking with Coordinator Robin for the Student Veteran Resource Center on possibly 2 of those banners being a Purple Hearts one and for the Navajo Coat Toppers. But as of that should be it. I yield my time.
Okay, I won't enlighten you in my presence much more, but I wanted to say some of the lessons we've learned from the fundraising with the Miles College, I think are applicable to other schools. So if anyone needs any outreach with that or is looking to help your own colleges individually, I'd be happy to share a little bit of what I've learned just on the go, or speak to people involved in your orgs. We're seeing how our clubs are functioning, and it's really been actually very helpful. So thank you.
Sorry. Hi everyone. My big update is that I got to speak with my dean on Wednesday. Very exciting. They filled me in on some things things are happening with the credit school that I think that I definitely see the benefit of having student voice. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And to shout out to the credit school clubs that they've been working all semester hosting big events for. Marketing forums happening Friday 9 to 11 a.m. and it's open to all students, not just marketing students. So if you guys want to go to that, there's going to be free food. And then the week after that will be HBSA, the Hispanic Business Student Association. They're hosting a corporate night, also open to all students, where businesses are going to be coming in to talk to students, and it's just a great networking opportunity. So I just want to shout out those two clubs. But with that, I yield my time.
Hey guys, if you need any help reaching out to the constituency that I represent, please reach out to me. I always feel good helping you guys with your projects in that regards. Anything else, please refer to my report, and with that, I yield my time.
So I'm going to try to motivate you guys to go one more time to the campus film screening. There's definitely free food, so who doesn't like free food? And then along with that, I've been trying to get more people to sign up for the COS Leadership Council, and I haven't really received any responses. So I'm going to try to go and talk to like more clubs and meet more professors and see like what they have to say. And with that, I yield my time.
I'm still working on the two projects I mentioned before, but I am in active conversation with my dean about allowing non-JCAS organizations to have access to the Industrial Tech Building and other JCAS buildings, so that those clubs and organizations can do their events without having someone peeking over their shoulders constantly. Like that, I think that's fine.
Currently working on a adoption animal thing for finals week during coming up, so dogs can come and cats with the Fresno Animal Shelter. I'm trying to work on it, and I've talked about it with Maris about bringing out a coffee cart. So we still don't know the details yet, but I'm still trying to get in contact with the animal shelters to see if all the animals that are shown that can be adopted by the end, if you end up wanting to keep getting them. That's one of the projects I'm working on. But with anything else, I yield my time.
For all meetings and projects, please refer to my report. With that, I yield my time.
I've got nothing right now. If you want to know what I've been up to, it's in my report. Yield my time.
So as far as my report is concerned, I was actually able to meet my dean last week. So did the meeting make any sense? No, but yeah, he was still really great. He was a great person. Nice to meet him. And I was able to collaborate with Senator Hill to help me in fundraising for our arts and the West Side of Engineering. And I'm still working on a few projects. And for any further announcements, please refer to my report and I yield my time.
Hi everyone, so I'm going to be meeting with a couple of constituents from the chemistry and physics department. Like I said last time, we're working on the exhibition and we're going to look at where they want to lay out everything. So I'll see you tomorrow, pretty excited. I am going to be meeting with the Leadership Council soon, so we'll start doing stuff finally for our college, probably like more final stuff. So it'll be exciting, but with that, I'm going to
We'll now open the floor on item 9.3, staff reports. Operations Manager Lazitza, the floor is hers.
Hey everyone, just wanted to remind you that you have priority registration for this Monday. If you do not get your classes for this slot, there will be no excuses post the fact. I sent you guys a very long message over Telegram detailing the rules in the bylaws regarding what the exceptions are if you do not have 4 to 6 p.m. open next semester. You guys have one more Senate meeting this semester, and then you have 7 more left in spring. So you have 8 Senate meetings left in total. You are pretty much halfway there. So just consider your time, consider your proposal timelines, consider when you need to get things done, and when you need to bring it to the Senate or committee for approvals, because I promise you, after the first 3 meetings in spring, you only have 4 more left, and then those run out really quickly. This is the longest Senate meeting that the Senate has had in 5 years. So I went back and I was looking through the minutes just to check, in 5 years, so that's a record. I put round of applause. This is also, so I don't beat the dead horse because I have to keep you from going home. This is the point of representing the student body. You should not be in a rush to go home. That is not what the students want from you. And I think that you should be proud of the fact that you spent your time, deliberated, disagreed, debated, and came to conclusions together Even if it means that maybe some of us are happier for this decision or unhappy for decisions, that doesn't matter. That's the point of the Senate. So I yield my time. Thanks, everyone.
We'll now move forward to item 10.0, adjournment. Does any member have any further business before we adjourn this meeting? Senator Zane? Is there a second? Senator Renteria? Okay. Any competing motion? Any discussion or debate? We'll now vote on the motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? The motion to adjourn passes. I adjourn this meeting of the ASI Student Senate meeting on Wednesday, November 12, 2025 at 6:15. As always, go Dogs!